Two policewomen and a passerby are killed in a terror attack in Belgium. The man attacked police with a knife in Liège, grabbed their guns, then opened fire.
I was walking along the street and I heard gunshots. I saw people walking, others running and shouting, "Leave, run, leave."
The attacker took a hostage in a school before being shot dead in a gunfight. We'll get the latest from our correspondent at the scene. Also on Global, Italy's political crisis hits the financial markets. Stock markets across Europe suffer big losses. The euro also takes a serious plunge. And new hope for treating brain cancer. We'll look at a vaccine that uses patients' own immune cells that's exciting researchers. This is Global. Hello. A gunman has shot dead two police officers and a driver in the eastern Belgian city of Liège. Officials say they're treating it as a terror attack. The authorities say the gunman attacked the policewomen with a knife before grabbing their guns and then opening fire. He then took a cleaner hostage at a school before he was shot dead by police. The latest reports say the gunman was on a police watch list and was suspected of being radicalised in prison. Our Europe correspondent Damien Grammaticus is at the scene.
Gunfire, mid-morning and suddenly confusion. On Boulevard d'Avroy, people scrambled to get away. Within minutes, police armed response teams were on the scene. A man with a knife had attacked two policewomen, grabbed their guns and shot them dead in the street, then shot the passenger in a passing car too. A 100 metres up the street, the attacker had entered a school and taken a hostage. Just minutes later, filmed from across the road, this was how it all ended. Police advance from the left, but look at the centre of the screen. The attacker runs out firing. He was shot by police on the spot. At least one of the officers was injured in this exchange. And this footage was taken seconds later by another witness. They shot him dead, the man says. Nasir lives by the school and heard it all happen. I saw the police, the ambulances. It was impossible to go outside, he said. 9-year-old Hamidul was playing in the school courtyard. Teachers told the children to escape by a back door.
Ils ont attrapé notre concierge, Bob, puis après ils l'ont touché.
The man grabbed our concierge Bob, he told me. Then the police fired. We all ran away. Everyone was crying. All the school children escaped unharmed, and the caretaker survived too. This attack happened in the centre of Liège, a city of almost 200,000, an hour east of Brussels. Police are treating it as a terrorist incident.
Les a agressés par l'arrière.
He attacked the police officers from behind, delivering multiple blows from his knife. He grabbed their guns, which he immediately turned on the officers who died on the spot. Then he continued on foot, tried to steal a parked car and shot a young man who was in it.
One thing investigators are looking into is why this attacker assaulted the policewomen with such ferocity. He had no known links to radicalism or terrorism. What they're considering is whether he was radicalised in prison. That in itself would fit a pattern with previous attacks.
Damien Grammaticus. Well, more information is coming in all the time. Just a little while ago, I spoke to our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, who told me more about what they know about the gunman.
Initially, we were told he was released from prison for petty criminal offences on Monday, yesterday. Now the latest that is being reported only by one news agency so far, AFP, is saying that he was on a terror watch list as somebody who'd been potentially radicalised and drawn into a circle of Islamist recruiters. The police have said that he shouted the takbir, Allahu Akbar, at the time of the attack. So it certainly does look like a jihadist-inspired attack. He, of course, is has been shot and is not going to be able to give answers.
And Frank, you talked about a whole series of attacks across Europe. Of course, you're right, but Belgium in particular has seen just a series of these types of incidents, haven't they?
Yes, I mean, Belgium started out really as being almost the kind of font, the wellspring of jihadist recruits, particularly the areas of Molenbeek and Schaerbeek in Brussels, where the police had perhaps overlooked for too long just what was going on there. And so the attacks that took place across the border in France, in Paris, had links to Brussels. Then Brussels suffered its own attacks in 2016 at Brussels Airport, at Zaventem Airport. The Belgian police and intelligence agencies have worked very hard to try and get on top of the problem, but it's not a perfect science. Look at the attacks we had in Britain. Britain's got MI5 and the police working really closely since 2005, and they weren't able to prevent 4 terrorist attacks last year.
Now, the political crisis in Italy has sparked big falls in European financial markets. The latest man asked to become caretaker Prime Minister, Carlo Cottarelli, has met with the country's president today. The populist Five Star Movement and the far-right League have said they'll vote down any government he tries to form. Unconfirmed reports say fresh elections could take place as early as July the 29th. James Reynolds has sent this from Rome.
Rome's Campo dei Fiori market is full of expert shoppers, tourists and residents. And if you stay in this country for about a week or so, you're likely to rack up at least one or two potential prime ministers and governments. The argument this country faces right now is about its money. It's about the currency, the euro, that people in this market are using to pay for their products. Populists who won a majority in the March general election say that they should be free to have their own government and to be able to negotiate with Europe in any way they please. But the president said you have to stick in the euro, you cannot even discuss leaving the euro without a proper national debate. As a result of this standoff, all these Italian voters here may have to go to the polls again in September, where there will be a very, very clear choice for them. They'll have to choose between parties who stick with the president, who say that Italy should respect all of its current arrangements with the European Union, and the populists, Five Star and the League, who say that Italy should be free to make up its own mind about the kind of relationships and alliances that it wants with the European Union. So that potential vote, that early election in September, may become an unofficial referendum on Italy's position in the European Union.
James Reynolds. Now, Italy's central bank warned today they're only a couple of steps away from investors losing confidence in Italy. Our economics correspondent Andrew Walker explained why Italy's political crisis is having such an impact on the markets.
Certainly the moves we've seen in the markets, both in relation to the stock market, but I would particularly point out in relation to Italian government debt, the bond market, where the government debts are bought and sold. Those moves do indicate investors getting significantly more nervous. And one of the things they are concerned about, James was talking in his report about the concerns about the future of Italy in the Eurozone. And the concern that investors had when the Eurozone crisis was at its peak in 2011, 2012, and might just a hint of it beginning to come back now, is the thought that having lent money in euros, they might get repaid in some new national currency, which they would expect to lose value. Now, I'd emphasise we're not there yet by a long way, and the signals in the bond market for government debt are not suggesting that that kind of situation is imminent. But there's no question some investors are getting more nervous.
The big trouble, though, for investors is that this is not going away. I mean, every indication is that we'll get early elections in September. It becomes a de facto referendum on the euro, and that is adding to the concerns that this is not short term. You've got months of this ahead.
Yes, indeed. That concern about, as you put it, a de facto referendum on membership of the eurozone is exactly what is making investors so uneasy. The sense I get is that most of them think that there's a very strong chance that Italy would pull back from what they would see as the brink, as it were. But they are now in a position where Italy leaving the eurozone is something that they can't discount altogether.
Now let's take a look at the day's other main global stories, and within the last couple of hours it's been confirmed that the senior North Korean official who's on his way to the US will hold talks with the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The vice chair boarded a flight from Beijing a few hours ago. His visit comes amid a flurry of diplomatic activity surrounding the on-off summit between the US and North Korea, which was penciled in for June the 12th.